Welcome everyone, my name's Dom, and if you saw the title of this video correctly, you might be thinking to yourself, what the why do a review of the PlayStation 4 in 2020? It's like 7 years old. Well, with the upcoming release of the PlayStation 5 later this year, I thought it was time to take a deep look at the PlayStation 4 and see if it was really worth picking up back when it first launched in 2013, and what the experience has been like with it since. Think of it like a complete review. Get it? Because it's like, this is completed the circuit, and, this is like a complete review for the... No? Alright, whatever. Editor's note, cut the intro here. So this is my PlayStation 4. I picked this little guy up back on launch day for about $400. It came equipped with a 500 gig hard drive, and if you pop this shiny little plastic part off, you can swap out the drive for whatever you want. The I/O is pretty standard, sporting 2 USB ports on the front, dedicated camera port on the back, nothing special. The power and eject buttons on the front are capacitive, and the console will make a nice beep sound when you press it with your fingers, which is a pretty nice touch. Get it? Because it's like capacitive and the touch. Hooking the thing up is pretty much as easy as any other PlayStation. Plug in your power, plug in your video, and you're good to go. I set mine up as soon as it arrived, and after a quick initial setup was done, I was ready to play. But before getting to all that, I had to update the thing. Oh, and install the games. And then update the games. By the time everything was updated, my controller had died, so after a quick recharge and another system update, I was ready to go. So after everything was done and I finally logged in, I was surprised to find how simple everything was. It was actually kind of nice. The UI was elegant and straightforward, and yes, it did have its quirks, but I was really liking the direction Sony was going this time around. Gone were the days of the cross-media bar and its oh so many icons, and now it's a more streamlined, gaming-focused UI with hints of social networks sprinkled everywhere. But this is a PlayStation 4 review, damn it. I don't care about the UI. Tell me about the games. The PS4 launched with some pretty big titles, Battlefield 4, Call of Duty, but everything was kind of a bit underwhelming as the PlayStation would barely hit HD resolutions and frame rates. But as a package, everything overall felt really gamery, in a way that the Xbox One didn't. And the graphics were good, the games just didn't really feel all that good. Most of the time I just had game-breaking bugs that would cause me to get kicked out of whatever I was doing. The first game I tried out was Battlefield 4, and I remember having a lot of fun playing it. And then I also remembered all the constant crashes that would accompany so many of my online sessions, prematurely ending my hour-long runs in Operation Locker and killing any hopes I had of a positive kill-to-death ratio. Oh, and this thing is loud. I was more surprised to find out all the noise I heard while playing Battlefield was the console and not all the jets flying around in the game. But even with all the trouble, I knew the PlayStation 4 had a long life ahead of it, and eventually new games were going to be released, and re-released, and re-re-released, and re-re-re... And obviously more games got released for the thing. But I don't know, something was off this generation. During that time in the console's life, the experiences just never really left me feeling satisfied, I don't know. I ended up spending more time using the console as a Netflix box and letting it collect dust on my dresser than anything else. Side note on the streaming thing, I did actually try out Sony's PlayStation Vue service for television streaming over the internet, and it was actually really nice. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but all the games kind of felt the same for me. It's always the first-person shooter or the yearly release of Madden or an action game. There was one game I played a lot, though. PT. Oh yeah, I played a lot of PT with my friends. PT being the little playable teaser for the new Silent Hills game that was going to be released soon. And I was having way more fun playing that little demo with my friends and scaring the shit out of each other than any of the full games at the time. The Silent Hills project would later go on to be cancelled because of some stupid dispute between Hideo Kojima and Konami. I do still have the demo on my original PlayStation 4, and I was actually able to migrate it to my PlayStation 4 Pro. However, all the lackluster games I knew wasn't really Sony's fault, so I held on to the console knowing that one day, things would be better. But while I was waiting for all that, what I knew was 100% their fault was this stupid, goofy, two-toned controller that looks more like a third-party controller than an actual third-party controller. Anyone getting Mad Catz nostalgia? It's got this weird light bar thing that changes colors to indicate which player has which controller, and games can also change the color on it depending on what's going on, like making it red if you're dying, or flashing colors if you're being chased by the cops or getting injured. The light bar always felt gimmicky. I don't know, I think Sony just threw it on there to make their controllers look more flashy. And sure, it is a huge step up from the DualShock 3 with its improved ergonomics and more triggery triggers, but it feels like Sony just kind of dialed it in with this one. It's got this touchpad thing, which also feels kind of gimmicky and barely any of the games use. The built-in speaker would have been better off as a microphone. Horrendous battery life when compared to the competition. The share button was pretty cool. I remember uploading a couple clips to Facebook now and again. But nothing about this controller has ever really felt right to me. It was nothing like the controller that shipped with the Xbox One. It looked really good sitting on your coffee table. The PS4 did share one thing with the Xbox One though, a new camera system. I know, none of us like the Kinect for the Xbox One, but Sony did do a few cool things with it. You could use the camera to log into your console with your face, but you did have to hold the controller up under your chin, which was kind of awkward and didn't really work well all the time. It had voice controls too, but yeah, those weren't very useful either. But even with all that, the PlayStation 4 started off really successful and was definitely the more popular console of the 8th generation. And I know I'm talking a lot of smack about the console, but I did and still do really enjoy the thing. Sony just had some kinks to work out. But in 2016, Sony did something the industry had never seen before. They refreshed the console. Yes, many consoles in the past have gotten refreshes. We've seen slim Xboxes and slim PlayStations, but this was a spec refresh, the PlayStation 4 Pro. It was basically a double-stuffed Oreo version of the original PlayStation 4, and its goal was to help push the current games to higher frame rates and higher resolutions. Now, why it didn't come with a 4K Blu-ray drive when Sony owns the Blu-ray technology, I have no idea. The lack of a 4K Blu-ray drive is made even stranger by the fact that the Xbox One S, which released around the same time as the Pro, actually did come with a 4K Blu-ray drive, but we'll get into that when we do the Xbox One review. And while the Pro was undoubtedly more powerful than the original PlayStation, not all the games really could hit 4K and 60 frames per second all that often, but looked way better when compared to the original, and they played better too. What I found to be the most interesting about the whole thing was that games were starting to implement more PC-like settings, and the fact that a player could select if they wanted higher frame rate or higher graphical fidelity, which, to be honest with you, I think is a really cool thing. And while the PC master race was going on and on about how a home console could never possibly do any of the things that you could do on a computer, there was one other thing that the PS4 Pro could do, and it could do it really well. VR. Sony released a VR headset for the PlayStation and the PlayStation 4 Pro, but the thing really seemed like it was optimized for the PlayStation 4 Pro experience, and you know what? It shows. I ended up picking up a headset when it launched, and after spending a few days hooking up all the cables and finding the best place for the weird breakout box that the headset needed to be plugged into, I was ready to play. What? Are you kidding me? This was the first time I ever strapped one of these things to my face, and I have to say, the experience is really out of this world. Wow, I am on fire with these puns today. And yeah, the resolution of the headset isn't all that great compared to the PC offerings, but I have to say the experience is just as enjoyable. And I would absolutely recommend trying out VR if you haven't already. There weren't a ton of offerings when the headset launched, so I ended up playing a lot of demos and indie games that ran VR, but as time went on, it became kind of clear that the developers weren't really interested in putting VR games out there. And in some cases, VR functionality would just be kind of shoehorned into an existing game or a soon-to-be released game. The Move controllers that were originally released on the PlayStation 3 did make their way over onto this generation to be used with the VR headset, and they worked about the same as they did on the PS3. I actually really wish Sony would use this as an opportunity to update the look of those things, because the whole multicolored glowy butt plug theme just, it wasn't really doing it for me. But it wasn't too long after the Pro release where this generation really took a turn in the gaming department. The games of the past few years have been really good, especially the PlayStation exclusives. You had God of War, New Horizon, Final Fantasy VII Remake. These games really did some wonderful things that made the initial years of the console just sort of disappear from my mind. Well, they had disappeared until I wrote this review. But looking back at the past 7 years, I can honestly say I have no regrets about picking a PlayStation 4 up on launch day. While there were their low times, I think this generation has ended up on a very high note. I do have a few notes though. Why is the performance of the UI in the PlayStation Store so bad? They're laggy and they're clunky and they feel more like an infotainment system from a basic economy car. And with the release of the PlayStation 5 just over the horizon, I'm really hoping Sony's able to take all the things that the PlayStation 4 did right and keep doing that. Adding things like backwards compatibility and a much faster UI, I think will make the next generation an amazing experience. Either way, I expect the PlayStation 5 to be a smash hit, and when I pick one up, the PS4 will go into the closet and enjoy a nice, long, well-earned retirement doing the thing that it does best, collecting dust. I give the PlayStation 4 experience an extremely bright 4 out of 5 light bars.